Yeah, thank you everyone for coming tonight. We've got Mike here from Trophy Hunter and Jay Kim from Fishing Station.
Hello again.
And we'll have a chat about snapper, I guess. So if anyone has any questions at all, please feel free to ask them at any time throughout. I find that this always works best with as much interaction from everyone, so please ask some questions. I guess we'll have a chat. The first thing we're going to talk about was where we would go looking for snapper. What spot would you pick? How are you going to pick your spot?
Hard-hitting questions.
Yeah, straight to the heart. Where's your best spot?
Yeah. Jake, we want to know where you see.
It depends on what we're doing. I mean, we've always got different spots for probably plasticking and different spots for bait. Most of the times we plastic of city, we'll always go for your main reefs, ledges, stuff like that. Generally for bait fishing, we want to go off it, probably to like where we call like thoroughfares, broken ground, shell, shaly, sandy stuff. It's generally not on the reef. We get hassled too much on the reef with baits, just with the crap, like the sweet, the martos and whatnot. I know some of you like marto, but yeah, that's general.
Yeah, that's a broad question, but
Yeah,
they'll be anywhere realistically. I don't know. These days as well, with all the mapping, old marks are probably not as good as new ones, in my opinion. Like fishing marks that have been fished all their lives is probably. I'm finding it tough for me now when I go out because I'm a bit lazier now that I don't want to go find. I did a lot of hard work in my time and found good marks that fished well, and they're not as good anymore because I'm not putting more time into finding new spots. I think I don't know. That would be my biggest opinion. Considering what you got now, like a lot of my marks are on reefs that weren't exposed on the charts back when we found them.
Yeah.
And you can see it's funny, especially with reveals and it's really the reveal that probably shows it a lot more definition. Yeah, I could point them out. Bring up a map. You can go chest them for me and then tell me how good they are. No, but that's probably in anywhere. I think no one's going to give you their best spot, and then it's going to be firing still. Years on, they definitely have taken a toll. I reckon, especially bigger fish, and they seem to be definitely resident fish once they get to a certain size. That's what I've observed. If I've caught a big fish on a snapper on a reef, that reef will hold big snapper consistently rather than just being a luck one-off.
Okay.
That's where I'm at.
And how would you approach that spot? Because I know that we've fished together on some of those spots, and you don't just drive straight onto them. Is there any?
No. So finding spots is good plasticking. It's good and bad. Like just because you don't catch anything on the spot while you're plasticking doesn't mean there's no fish there. Having a good sounder and being able to know sort of how your sounder works and what size fish is what in what sort of depths is the biggest key. I think a lot of the time I'll run over spots at speed, and mark it. I won't like fishing it if I've just driven over something in 30 metres or less, flat out, or even going slow. Realistically, they're pretty spooky fish. So mark a lot of spots that you think that's going to hold. If you run over a ledge and it's got a stack of bait on it, it's a good chance it's going to hold snapper at some point. I think
going from that, we found a lot of new spots just going from A to B. You'll see the bait, and then obviously underneath them a nice little ledge. It's always a good spot to mark. I can't even tell you how many times, like, you always do it. You're going back, there's bait here, there's bait here, whether it's for out game fishing or you're just on the reeds fishing for snapper, but you just mark that mid-water column bait, and then on the bottom, you see that nice little ledge. That's a cracker spot. We always usually try to go back to that plasticking or even fish with baits, depending on what the terrain is, but yeah.
I think the difference between bait and plasticking is you're probably you've got to put a couple of hours into a bait session for it to start to work. Sometimes it's working straight away if you know the spot, but sometimes you're fishing a big flat area and you need to bring the fish to you, which could be coming from a couple hundred metres away, realistically. Whereas plasticking, it's sort of catch-22. I think you'll catch more fish bait fishing once they're in the trail. But at the same time, plasticking, certain conditions are definitely better for bait versus plastics. Yeah, Shane. There's a couple of screenshots you can sort of see a bit of difference. So that's sort of a lot of bait on a reef. It's a good sign. You can probably see there's bigger predator fish on the edge of it. So yeah, generally, if you're approaching it if you've marked that spot before, I won't sound a spot before I fish it. So if I sound a spot and it looks good, I'll just mark it and even come back a couple of hours later, and then always work your drift out before you get to the spot. Never drive over it. Never drive around just try and keep your revs sort of pretty smooth is what I do. And then drift over it, casting plastics or have an anchor up, have a bait fish. That's pretty much.
This is one we got, which is just a random bump.
Yeah.
30 metres of water, and that was big reds too. We got an 80 and an 89 off that. So that's what you're looking for. They actually mark it really nice. It's not like the I just call it crap. Yeah.
Like that.
That's crap.
Yeah. But it's also a good area.
Yeah.
Because a good area to start. But even though there's a lot of crap fish, they're all there for the same reason.
Yeah. So we'll plastic that. I'll be more inclined to plastic that. Obviously, you drop a bait on that, it's not going to be. I don't know. I don't like it. Just getting picked to death. So it's always. It just depends on what tactic. If I see that, I'll generally plastic over it.
Okay. So we might have a bit of a chat about the different techniques, I guess, for catching snapper, and maybe we start with bait fishing. Floatering.
Ours is super simple. I use the same rod that I plastic with. So heavy, medium, trophy, it doesn't matter. As long as it does have quite a nice soft tip, which is quite good for your bait fishing. I use a longer leader, so whether it be fluorocarbon or mono, I use fluorocarbon just because of the abrasion. You do have your line going through reef at times. But yeah, I use a longer leader to help the sink rate. We're going to start probably fishing with a spool of mono as well when there's no current. I probably think it actually does present the bait better. With current, I actually am more inclined to fish the braid because it just cuts through the current better. But yeah, simple, that, sinker, straight to a hook. I've actually been trialling circle hooks much more now. I actually really like it, especially when there is current. I don't know if you guys have fished a lot with current, but as soon as you get a bite, you knock the bail line over, you could literally be winding in about 20 metres of belly before you get tight to your fish. Very important, like winding into your strike and then getting tight to your fish, setting that hook, and then generally the real fight starts. But it's nice and simple. I'll let Mike do the plastic talking, but that's the general way we fish with baits or floating.
Yeah, and I think circle hooks are actually quite good bait fishing. Like I've lost so many fish, and a lot of people they swallow the bait right down, and they haven't got sharp teeth, but they've got like molars that crunch against themselves, and as soon as that's in between their teeth, it just cuts it off like
Very strong pressure.
They do it even with plasticking. I tie a loop knot now because so it's a bit loose around the eye of the hook, so it's got less chance of getting it squashed against the eye of the hook.
Fair enough. This year they do bite you off. Yeah, don't think they
A lot
They
more
don't think it's a fish. They think the snap will bite you off. Big ones too.
Yeah, generally.
Well, I guess with floating, does everyone know how to actually do floating for snapper? Like, I guess it's about cutting up burley pilchards in particular was very common. I know Mike likes to use some big chunks of yellowtail.
Yeah, if there's pickers around, some definitely something that's got a bit of strength to it, so it can get through the pickers and then get to the bottom. or get, just basically make it, because sometimes if the bait's light, the pickers will just hold the bait up in the air, right up on the surface, and almost not let it get down. That's generally when there's a lot of sweep and matos around, they can turn it into nothing pretty quick.
Yeah, we always try to use a denser bait, so things like a cube of a yakka, butterfly yakka, or something that's going to actually let it sink more, but survive the pickers. If there's a heap of pickers, we generally don't stick around the area for too long, but something denser, you always keep that in mind. Like, it's not just the sinker you use, but the density of the bait, and even the plastic, we'll go through that later, but the density of the actual bait itself does matter, does help the sink rate, and obviously helps the pickers as well. Fillet I will use, but yeah, they get carried around more. You can always tell, the best way I find with the baits, as soon as you're bringing in your bait, and if that angle, once you get rid of your belly again, and that angle is just too high, it's not deep enough. And then just change your sinker or your bait accordingly. And yeah, you can, I guess you want like a nice 45 kind of degree one. Yeah, I mean, they'll all knock it on the drop, but you still need it to like get down. It's nothing if it's just going to get carried with the current. Yeah. I use a single, but I know a lot of people that use doubles. But singles just keep it easy. The one thing I don't like, when I used to use doubles, and a bloody barracuda or something, or a pike, nips to the middle, it's compromised anyway. So yeah, but I don't know, I've always used singles. Yeah.
So have I, but it's definitely, depending on how big your bait is, I mean, you can run a double and just you'll hide a second hook in a decent bait, so it's not a silly idea.
Yeah.
Do you want me to, with the plasticking?
Yeah, I guess the next topic we'll talk about is soft plasticking.
Yep. As in technique, or?
Well, I guess we could cover both. We could sort of cover what's your favourite plastics to use and when you would use that style. We put a few out behind you.
Yep.
There.
Oh, look, I think these days they all seem to catch, but I mean, I've always used the squidgies and the gulp are probably my pick. Not saying anything about the bait junkies, I just haven't. Yeah. I haven't used them. A jerk shad or a prawn are my picks. And probably making sure that you're not overweighting a plastic, I think is probably the biggest thing. Some they will eat a heavy weighted plastic, but I find you just want it to be sinking slowly, and you don't really want to be. You want a good cast out the front of the boat, and basically by the time it's at the boat, ideally you don't want it to be on the bottom. You just off the bottom maybe, or even to the bottom. Don't let it go past. If you're shallow water fishing. So there's probably two different techniques realistically. Anything sub 35 metres, I'd call shallow water fishing. Anything sort of 40 plus, I would say it's a little bit different techniques. I find it's just a lot more cast and feel. I don't do a lot of twitching, or a lot of the big ones seem to take it on the drop. And weighting accordingly. So you got to work it out how fast your drift is. You sort of want to keep your drift around under a knot. So if you need a parachute or two parachutes, or sometimes when it's howling, we'll run two parachutes to slow it right down. Making sure you get your drift lines working, and I rarely sort of do a couple of drifts do two drifts on the one spot, and unless you're catching sort of, generally if it's fishy, you'll catch most of your fish on the first drift. It'll just get worse from there, and then give it a rest, come back, just work all your sort of, all the areas that you got. Go try a couple of new ones every time you go fishing, and you'll definitely find some more.
Yeah. Like a lot of the plastics actually do sink differently as well and cast differently. The gulps are much denser, so they'll cast better, especially a jerk shad, which won't have a tail to wiggle around. So they'll cast better in the shallows, but they do sink a bit faster. So they do. Yeah, bait junkies, I guess squidgies to a degree, but like especially the Z-Mans, which are the Duratec, they don't cast as well, and they do flop around a bit, but they're buoyant, so they'll have a slower sink rate. So it's a catch-22, I guess. It just depends on what's worked for you before. The Z-Mans, they definitely are the most durable. Some people can't stand using gulps because they don't last, but if they catch, I don't care. I mean, $10 a pack, it's not the end of the world. So I don't know. It depends on your personal experience. I find what you like. There's guys that won't touch gulp, I know, but I don't know. They
Yeah,
work.
these days it used to be gulp only at the start when I started. So that was sort of when once you catch one fish on a certain plastic, it's your favourite plastic, or you caught. It changes all the time. So I don't really think. I just think a well presented bait is probably a well rigged plastic, and something with a bit of size. I don't really like the sort of, anything 5 inches or bigger, I suppose.
Yeah. And oh, sorry.
You throw the 9 inch.
9-inch jerk shad is actually just a 7-inch jerk shad with a bigger tail.
Yeah.
So you can use the same hook.
And you still catch platies on. Catch small snapper on those things. So I'm sure that they're pretty guts.
Depends if you want a big one, go as big as you can.
The biggest thing I suppose is hook to plastic ratio. Like if you've got a really big sluggo style bait and you've only got one little hook right in the front, there's a good chance they're going to bite behind the hook and you strike at it and you'll miss it. Whereas they'll still eat a 7-inch or a 5-inch lure or a 6-inch. That's probably the only downside to a big plastic. Sorry. Yeah, it's probably talking shallow. Especially. Like if you're talking 60 meters of water, some days you can drift all day over them, and keep catching them. But definitely 30 plus. I've never had it where you're going to keep catching them on drift after drift, and I don't like to sort of pressure them that much either. You give them a break, catch one or two. I mean, if you're talking Sydney fishing versus say Coss Harbour fishing, it's a different ball game. You catch half a dozen here and you catch 20 up there. That's sort of both good days. So it's a lot easier to learn when there's a lot of fish around, and that's where I learned. Like I caught them up there for the first time I ever did it. We had no real idea, and I was like, "Geez, this is easy." And then we brought it to Sydney and started doing the same things, and it was doing well here too. So I think.
Yeah, and with your jig heads, how do you choose the weight?
So my probably preference would be anything under 20 metres. I'll run a 1/6, depending on how windy it is. The other hard problem you got is if you're drifting reefs that start in 30, come up to 10. You sort of you got to try and find a happy medium. So it'll be anywhere between a 6 1/4, anything up to 30 metres. And then after that, 3/8, something around 30 to 35 metres.
I was going to say, one of the reasons why we use longer rods than the traditional 7-footer now is to get that extra casting distance. It actually, it's not too bad around the boat, even with a bigger fish. And yeah, it's amazing what 5 inches is different makes.
Yeah.
That's
you
why
can never cast too far either. Like it's always, even same sort of rule, stick baiting. Get it as long way away from the boat you can. You got
time in the water.
Yeah, and they are spooky. Like especially again shallow water. I predominantly do shallow water snapper fishing, so it's all a bit more worrying about where the boat is and spooking the fish before you caught it. What's that?
That's all right. Your leader, what size leader are you running?
20 to 25. 25's 20 is plenty, but depending where you're fishing and what you want to try. If you're targeting a real big fish, I would fish 25 to 30.
Yeah, we run 30 now, bait fishing, just because you're much more likely to get swallowed. Yeah. I'll just add something, just in case you want to know what they eat. This was something we pulled out of a bigger one last week, which is interesting. It's not a common thing to find in them. It's an eagle ray with a flathead. So next time you think you need to be super picky about what bait you're throwing down, crazy, stuff like that. It's pretty crazy. I mean, it was a shock. Got that little the prick came out first, and I was like, oh, what's this? A little fish, but yeah, that whole thing came out with a flathead. So they can't be too picky.
I thought you let the snapper go.
What? We tried.
Have we got any questions on plasticking at all? Any?
Go.
Micro jigging, that's next. Micro jigging. Is there no other questions on plastics? Yep.
Minimal. Not much.
If anything, just keep
Keep the slack.
keep in contact with your lure rather than always moving your lure. Keep your belly minimal, and it's almost like bait fishing sometimes, because when it's falling naturally, and that's when they eat it. That's when 90% of your bites are going to come. You will get them again shallow. This is shallow water speaking. Once it goes to deep water, I find it can be a totally different ball game. They love the rod holder. The rod holder movement seems to beat any other movement I have. I sometimes get the shits and just go stuff this and just leave it in the holder and watch it, as much as it doesn't feel like plasticking, but it definitely catches them. And again, having a second rod out the back seems to catch bloody a lot of fish, even shallow fishing. While you're casting forward, just having a heavier weighted. Like if I'm casting a 1/4 ounce forward, I'd put a 1/2 ounce out the back and just let it sort of drift in the current behind you, and you'll definitely pick up fish doing that as well.
I think it's all about getting your sink rate right, as opposed to action
Give it a couple.
in shallows.
I see some people, like the other day we were fishing, we saw watching a guy throw it out, and it was like, didn't leave the thing stop moving for 2 seconds. He didn't catch a snapper once, and you almost feel like going over to him and saying, just
leave it alone.
Leave it alone. But and again, it's not saying you'll never catch them like that, but yeah. What's the best braid?
There's things like APPAREL Suffix are stronger. Suffix will be a little bit smoother, but APPAREL in terms of reliability and strength, it's probably the best. But you lose a little bit of cast. It's always, again, compromise, like with everything. So with APPAREL you're getting ultimate strength and reliability, not strength, but lose a bit of the castability factor. And generally when you do go to more of your PE grade lines, they're smoother, they'll cast better, but you lose that abrasion and power. So yeah, I know Mike uses APPAREL. It's nothing wrong with it, obviously, but I use Suffix. I just want something a little bit smoother. It does help with the bait fishing as well, I find. Just like letting it out and just not getting as much belly.
In say at like 100 metres of water or so, at what point is a jig head too big for your mind?
You can 100 metres of water, if there's not a hell of a lot of current, like a 2 ounce jig head is what I'd use. And I've done it a lot, and it does well. But yeah, you got to wait. The problem is you got to wait for it to get down. So, that's where multiple rods come into play, where you can have one going down, one coming up. You've always got one in the zone, sort of thing. You have 2 or 3 people on the boat.
Do you know what an elevator jig head is? They generally they're a lot faster sinking.
And they work really well. They've caught plenty of same like that style of thing. These also work quite well in that depth, and octo style jigs and.
Yeah, we actually just use that. We still have one of those in the rod holder while we're floating. Very effective. Just with a smidgen of bait as well.
I've actually had some days where we're floater fishing and having plastics out the back, just sitting there and nothing on bait, and you're catching them all on the plastics whilst burling.
Yep.
So there's. Yep. Definitely not crystal clear, unless it's first light. Like I find when the water's crystal, the shallow water bites shuts down early. Like you'll get a few fish first light, and then it's tough going, and that's even up the coast. So ideally, you want that that clean green, like sort of clear green. Yeah, that's my pick of water.
Yeah. And some current too.
Yeah,
you need some current.
I like
a little bit.
Yeah, current or wind even. Sometimes depending on the areas you're fishing. Some places need current to hold fish. Some places just hold fish because they're a big reef system. Snapper, I couldn't tell you the prime temperature because I believe that they're all year round.
We've caught them in summer, 2 knots of current.
Yeah, I mean they're obviously all year round, but people just don't target them as much through summer. they all turn to kingies or whatever. Some people do, like, but a lot of big ones actually get caught January, February in peak hot water. So yeah, I don't think, don't have all the answers, but I don't think that's too important.
So I guess we could probably talk about like deeper water snapper fishing. So with soft plastics, but also we've got micro jigs, the kaburas or whatever they're
Yeah,
called.
the good thing about snapper is you can catch them any bloody way. Like they're
Yeah.
actually more aggressive than people probably ever thought. Going back, like I've caught them on poppers like that you'd throw for GTs, and you'd never think there's snapper. Like we've caught three we caught two in a session and three in a week one day, like 1 week, and you don't understand why. And throwing blue and yellow poppers, so they're quite aggressive when they want to be. I've seen one. I thought it was a shark. I was watching it for about 10 minutes. We were just snapper fishing, and it was a glass out, and I just see this fin like tearing around the surface. I'm like, oh, with all the bait rippling on the surface, and got close, and I just heard this weird noise like a shark couldn't make. Like it sounded like a kingfish sucking in some bait. And I looked over to it, and it was Pete McWatters was on the boat. He said, "That's a snapper," and I'm like, "No chance." And he's cast at it, and it's literally like retrieved it like a kingy, and it's ate it, and it was probably. Yeah, what I was seeing was its bump on its head and its tail, not the dorsal of a shark. And it was probably 7.5 kilos, 8 kilos. It was the best thing I've ever seen. I still wasn't going to believe it until it was in the boat though. But yeah, they don't ever sort of, they're aggressive type of fish, so they'll eat when they're hungry. They'll eat anything. Sorry, Scooter.
Yeah. Jay, you want to talk about some micro jigging?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done too much of the micro jigging. I've caught plenty of little ones on them, but yeah, I mean, it's the same thing as anything else, really. I mean, we'll call it. I mean, deep 50 meters plus. They work well. I mean, again, you're generally going for a bite on the drop. They've got a very distinct crunch to them, so like you generally know it's a red when you hook up. But yeah, micro jigs. I've probably used a little bit more of the Kabira style jigs these days. I just find them easy. I just want to leave it in the rod holder. I've actually caught them on these, leaving it in the rod holder too. But just with the way what weather's doing this year, we've done just a lot more bait fishing because we can't get a great drift, and just sticking one of these out, even into the deeper water, and they've been fantastic. But yeah, you've done a bit better on the jigs.
Yeah, I haven't done a lot of it, but it's definitely fun. Like when you're fishing light, fishing 20 pound with a little nice overhead and a noodly rod, and then you get a 4 kilo snapper. It's actually pretty fun, and it pulls. It's just a different way of catching them again. Like you're chasing a kingfish, and just everything's a lot more downsized.
Okay.
I mean, did you want to talk about anything with the type of gear for jigging with them, or?
Yeah, we can.
Do you have anything? You probably don't have anything.
Well,
Oh yeah, there you go. That's
basic.
Yeah.
Micro jigging setup.
Yeah, so they're pretty flash little bits of rod anyway. It's actually quite fun. Sometimes it's more when you're just a bit bored and you can go out deep water, 80 metres, and you not just catch snapper. You drift off the edges of the reef. You get to be flooded, and you get pearl perch. Especially once you go north, then everything starts to sort of all more species start to pop out for the micro jigging. Pearl perch love them. Trag, Sergeant Baker,
Beautiful.
Rockies. They're too hard though.
Anyone got any questions on micro jigging or deep water snapper?
What size reels would you be using on a optimum kind of snapper trip?
Like plastic, yeah, 4,000. 4,000 is mine. You sort of can't do much, can't not do much with the 4,000 in my opinion. Daiwa are the same sort of size, are they?
Yeah, the same now. 4,000 to 5,000 suitable rods. So like generally like up to as long as it's up to 30 pound. And that 20 pound braid. That's
you sort of 30 pound braid is almost bulletproof through a snapper rod anyway. Even 20 pound is to try and snap 20 pound braid through. I mean, depending what you're talking about, PE2 or all the things these days. But yeah, 20 pound power braid, you would do well trying to break it.
question. If you're at 12 mile kingfish, would you drift down the pilch Depends on the conditions. I mean, if you can float that depth. Are you anchored as
you're
well?
waiting that long a time for it to
Yeah,
get into
to
the
get
zone.
down, the problem
it's
is-
a long way to get into the zone. For floater fishing, like, generally the bottom 20, bottom 30. Yeah, like if they're feeding hard, you might get it up
Further up.
higher, but snapper, yeah. I mean, you catch them jigging, like you catch them jigging for kings when you're out there. And it's, again, further up the coast you go, there's sort of more, there's a lot more fish, there's a lot more competition, and some days, I've had days jigging for kingies and we caught more snapper, like 3-4 kilo snapper. Oh, like no, it's fine. It's a good question, but like honestly, probably Port Stephens North. Yeah, it isn't easy fishing in Sydney for snapper. That's the truth. Like if I go out and catch 5 snapper, I'm happy. Like that's a really good day. Like if you can't catch 2, it's a good afternoon session. Like 2 decent sort of fish. Some days you have your blinder days and get 2 over 80.
I think just answering it also with
Hey, Evan.
the deep water, the paternoster is probably your best bet in that depth. Like you'll get your big snapper
Alfie?
off Sydney in that deeper water on paternosters, whereas you can still get big snapper in shallow on a paternoster, but it's not as common as catching them on plastics or on floated baits down. But in your deep water, it definitely you can catch any size one on them.
We should actually bring up the plumb bobbing technique.
Yes,
It's so
The
effective.
original.
For the deeper water, it is probably the best way, especially if there's a little bit of current, like just to get the bait down there. And we've done it at Texas Peak. We picked up plenty of like reds to 3 kilo. It's definitely very effective. I don't think it's the best way to get consistent big fish, but to get those platies, it's out in that depth as well. Like it's definitely probably the best way.
And definitely depth hides the illusion of
Spookiness.
yeah. You can get away with just having the motor running in 60 meters or 80 meters and catching fish.
A lot of the times in shallow water, it's so stealth approach, and then as soon as you're in the deep, you're just trying to get that plastic down to them. Yeah, and even I'll just get it down in the rod holder, so it's a little bit off the bottom, just drifting, and that they're just crunching that. Yeah, definitely not as spooky.
There's one thing I would say too, with the snapper comp coming up, like there's going to be a lot of boats looking for snapper or fishing, and I think the biggest thing is probably not burning around all where the area you're going to fish, like your own spots. Plus, someone might be doing a drift for snapper, or if someone's anchored up for having a bait session, and you sort of rock up to their transom, they're not going to be too happy with it after it's been sitting there for a couple of hours burling. Sort of a bit more like, I think if everyone's on the same page with it, it works well. Whereas when it's almost like a race, it doesn't. Like I find myself in that position a fair bit where, and the hard part is people don't know where you're going to go. But I think if people are drifting, it's sort of, you can generally work out if the wind's coming from the northeast, they're going to be drifting to the southwest. So driving on the south side of them pretty close is sort of right where they're about to, hit their reef or something like that. So I don't know, sort of something that I probably wanted to say just to be mindful with. Look, no, don't get me wrong, you catch them, but you will catch a lot more Sargos and Rockies. Does that make sense? So, like, I even, Griffo's a prime example. We go fishing all the time, but he's always down the back there going, I'm like, what are you doing? I don't know. But, no, not without being rude, but it's not just Griffo. Alex is, Alex just wants him in the esky.
Just one.
just one big one. Nah. But in all honesty, yeah, you will catch, and the smaller ones generally react better to the twitching, and like they're a little bit more. I suppose they're not wise yet. They're not. Whereas, I know I couldn't tell you. It'd be 20 to 1 that I've caught on the drop versus working it. However, the old boat, the old rod in the rod holder seems to trick them. It's not a. It's like that natural waft that just keeps consistently doing it that you can't do with your arm.
You guys fish for brim? It's very similar. So like most of the guys will just cast under the pineland and just literally look at the line for a hit on the drop.
Yeah, and sometimes like you could have a belly in your line because you haven't kept it tight enough, and you can feel that flick in your line, and you think, oh, that was a bite, but he's actually got it in his mouth, and he just hasn't taken slack yet. So you got to wind in, and definitely setting the hook with a plastic is everything because they're only going to take a certain amount of time before they work out it's not real food.
I'll hit anything now on the plastic. I don't really. If it's in the right area, I'll
Waves?
just as soon as I
Waves?
see it.
The wave bite.
Yeah.
That's the other.
Or coming up off the swell.
Yeah. I know. Sometimes when everyone's, especially when they've had a bite or when they're new to it, and yeah, the wave when the wave sort of sucks away from the boat and you're keeping it tight, the wave pulls you and the plastic away from each other, and it feels like you're getting a bite. And but that's all. You're better off striking at it than missing it. I don't believe. I mean, obviously first and last light, 100%. But I can tell you, I caught a lot of big ones midday, like
Not
full
for bait-
sun.
Not for bait fishing.
Yeah,
Get that belly in
Like-
the water anytime's good.
I know a lot of people that have rules like, you don't catch them big early. You only catch them early, or you only catch them late. But yeah, 100%, they will bite freely first thing. They haven't been driven over. They haven't been pested. They're ready to feed first light. But yeah, definitely caught a lot of big ones midday. Yep. Like you need to be, so you can't just strike when you've got slack line. Like, you want to be. What I'll be doing, I'll just take the mic on. But if you're getting a bite, you sort of need to sort of get that line tight, and then hit it, and then wind rather than keep striking.
Wind into your strike.
Wind into it, set it. And once you sort of, I see a lot of people where it's sort of just hook up and they're just letting the rod take the line, and halfway through the fight they'll lose it because it's not a small hook to try and set in a pretty bony mouth. Do you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I strike hard. Like you drag limits how hard it's going. So, and I fish a fairly tight drag. So, you find out, have everything perfect, and you can fish it all to your limits. So. When you're setting up a drip, you going over, 100%, yeah. Depending how big the reef is and how much of the spot, like some spots are obviously quite small. If it's a big patch of reef and you've got plenty of time and there's no one around and you want to just, take your time, which is the best time, like I'll say, okay, I'm going to start on the left-hand side of the reef, work my way to the right. Could be a big shoal. Always start off the edges and finish off the edges because a lot of the fish are on the edges. So, and the other thing is you don't want to be driving up until you start marking fish because that's generally where they are on that first part of where it's coming up or the sand line or and then stagger your drift 50 meters, and you can with GPSs now. I basically will put a cursor on where I want to start or where the fish should be, where the rise is, and then I'll make sure I'm 60 meters short of it or something like that and drifting towards it. I mean, if you know there's fish there and you've missed them and whatnot, then give it 100 meters. But at the same time, like certain areas like Sydney, they're copping boat traffic all day. So there's a fine line with it all, I think, as well. Like I probably read into it too much, whereas cruisers drive over their heads, friggin', while you're fishing it, and then you think, oh, it's ruined, and then you catch a fish in the wash. So I think some areas are like fish get used to traffic. That's my, that's my opinion on it.
5 O's and 6 O's usually. I don't like anything small. Yeah, definitely. Depending on the brand, there's no key that manufacturers follow, unfortunately. So I just eye it off. But I like using big baits as well, just for the piggers and stuff. But just mainly because I want to get a big one. So I just think it's going to do better. So when you put a big bait on a smaller hook, it's literally taking up like most of the gape. So like, yeah, we'll always try to have good exposure. So the 6.0, depending on the brand, but the 6.0 is fine. It's absolutely fine. I've been bitten off on 5.0s quite a few times now. But yeah. Yep. No, I don't usually. You're getting bitten off?
How are you losing them? Maybe is the bait, like as you were saying, with
How are you hooking it? So like I have you need plenty showing. So when you hit it,
sometimes
there's plenty of hook to go through.
Sometimes with a bait, like, you know, if you got to fill it like that, and I'm using a single hook, I just pin it lightly in the tip,
Yeah.
rather than
Even
pinning
twice
it
is
down
not
and-
good. Yeah.
yeah. You got a running hook.
Yeah. So that top one's running. I'd probably fix it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would.
Who knows? It just depends how they eat it.
The only other bad thing with a running hook, which I haven't had on snapper, but I've done on kingies, is that running hook pulls down on the other knot, and it'll pop it.
Yeah.
That could be happening a fair bit, and I've had that because I used to rubber band a twin hook rig for squid, because you know you make up a rig and it's always going to be a different size squid, and the rubber band used to be perfect because you could just hold it in. And then we started losing fish after fish, and then in the end I just put on the cleat and just pulled it tight, and as soon as it hit the knot, just popped the knot in 100 pounds. So I can imagine 20 pounds is going to be the exact same.
And what bait are you using?
And where are you fishing?
No, the reason why I'm asking that is a
How
pilchard.
big are they?
A pilchard is not as important for hook exposure. It's because it's
Squishy.
soft. But a hard bait like a yellowtail, slimy, squid, cuttlefish, pike, whatever else you want to use, eagle ray, you have to have that hook exposure.
That's crazy.
But yeah, pilchard's probably the only bait you could hide the hook if you wanted to, but it make no real difference. Preference
The other
is to have
thing-
hook exposure.
The other thing is, if you hook a bait, like when it's sinking, it's also you want it to sink naturally rather than spinning. And I think that's why sometimes lightly pinning them or just pinning it in the top. Like if I'm using a half or a big chunk of slimy or yakka or whatever, sometimes I just hook it through the top. Just once. I never sort of run it once, turn it back into itself. Yeah. Just ends up being a bit of a mess.
Another thing with that bait, so like generally the heaviest, the densest part always on the bottom, so it's always sinking like that. So if that's the head, it's always sinking like that.
Yeah.
It even helps like with a fillet. I'll go the narrowest bit where the hook is. So even when you're bringing it up, it's like an arrow. It's not going to come up spinning. And better hook exposure, just being on the narrow bit. Yeah.
Any other questions? Oops.
In terms of Burley, talking about Burley up.
Yeah.
I know I'm kind of repeating what you already said, but pretty much anything you got on board? Or?
Yeah, like especially a lot of junkie catch sometimes pike. Because the good thing about fresh baits as well is that you can get the burley through the. Like if I'm using, say for instance, fillets, all the frames are burley and they're solid. They'll get through all the pickers, like the heads and the skeleton, and yeah. So that's pilchards are fine as well. Like depending as again, if some spots in close can be sweep infested, and it's hard to get through them. You almost need like a burley bomb to get through them.
Does anyone know what a secret weapon is? No? Can you go get it?
It's a secret.
Actually, don't get it. It's a thing, so it's basically a device that will get down. It's very good when the birds are around as
Mutton
well.
birds,
Yeah, if you've got 3 muttons in your tray and you're throwing burley in, they can easily take 10 cubes out, no problems. It's just
And your
not
bait.
run underneath. You'll see, like around underneath. Yeah. Oh, you bring that. I've got my one, which is yeah. There is an art to burleying as well.
Especially,
like,
and they're great for burleying if you're plumb bobbing, like perfect scenario because you're fishing straight up and down the boat, under the boat, and you're trying to burley the fish to you. They get it straight down there quick because it's just a float baits down unweighted 50 meters. Just never.
So this is my one. It's just modified up. I've got an extra weight on it just to get it down quickly. So it opens up as soon as you. So we'll sink it like that. You can generally see it on the sounder going down. We'll fill it with cubes. And then when we lift it up, or just even start to retrieve it, that opens up, releases all the burley right in the zone. Don't have to worry about it like throwing it up out of the boat if the current's going. Yeah, it's good. Gets it away from all the birds mainly. I mean, God, even good for cubing for yellowfin. If the birds are around, they're a problem. Like
Yeah.
you won't get a bait through.
Yeah.
So once you get that down there, it's
Yeah, I think also key to that is making sure, well, not making sure, but you can utilise the depth of that. So you don't have to float, like just, a lot of people just use it just for the bottom, but you can actually just drop it a few metres.
Yeah.
You just, I think the key with also burling is just understanding the current and the depth that you're in as well. And so you can use the size of your burley pieces, cut the pilchards bigger or smaller depending what the flow is, or things like yellowtail and pike, etc., that are heavier, bigger pieces. If you've got pickers, or if you need something to sink down, a bit more depth as well. Have we got any other sort of questions? Yeah.
anchored usually. Yeah, drifting's probably okay if you're not moving, but yeah, anchored. You got to stay in the same spot, I think. I've had so many good days
tough
this
one.
year
It's a
with
tough
the worst conditions, the worst moon, on bait mainly, just because the conditions suck for plasticking. I don't know, I don't believe any of it anymore. I don't have that, honestly,
Yeah.
I don't even have that luxury anymore. I go
Yeah,
fishing on my days
yeah,
off.
Yeah, I think
That's
that's the
it,
biggest thing.
that's all I got.
When you don't catch them on the full
doesn't
moon,
get
you
any
blame,
days
you blame
off.
the full moon.
It's getting less and less every year. No, we don't.
Yeah.
I don't. We don't look at any of that. When the weather's good, just go.
Yeah.
It's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Once a month this year.
Yeah. That's right.
I think if they're in the reef on 20 pound, it's sort of generally over. I mean, kelp is where they'll run through, and you'll feel it go through the kelp, and you can sometimes the braid, like you need them to get to the braid, so the braid cuts the kelp. But it's, I don't know. There's a couple spots that you will generally get reef, but it's pretty safe off here.
A lot
Going
of
up north,
softer coral here as well.
yeah, there's
Like,
not
it's
that
too bad.
harsh. Like it's a lot of kelp ridden rock, I reckon. Like, and I don't think they try to reef you. I think it's just bad anglers, except for one spot.
Yeah. It's got both of us.
Yeah.
Um,
They know where the rocks are there.
yeah. Might have a chat just about your rods, Mike.
Yep.
So the Trophiana rods.
So, probably most of you know, or some of you know, I've built rods for years, and yeah, basically hard to find a blank that I wanted to build on, and ended up sort of coming up with my own one and turning it into a two-piece, mainly because we wanted more length, and to sort of do anything longer with a 7 foot, like you can't really stick a 7'5" into your car that easily, or plus I personally like a two-piece. I think it's actually given it a lot better. You got a bit more grunt once you need it down here, and it's got a lot of tip. Kept it pretty simple, kept it full butt, because a lot of people rod holding, which myself included, and split butts seem to get snapped off in the rod holder pretty easily once a fish jumps on, and there's no time. Like, they hit it and run, and yeah, at least a bit of fun, a bit of EVA will save it. Kept it all pretty simple and good, all good Fuji quality Fuji products on it. Silicon guides. This is our. We made two. We had 3 models. We only sort of released 2. The third one's the lightest one's still getting modified. But yeah, we brought a medium and a heavy. They both can cast pretty heavy weights. They're pretty ballsy. Like, the blanks are fairly strong. I mean, you guys have sold a fair few now. And
Yeah, I mean, we've both used one quite extensively. Like, some of the design things that we like about it, which a lot of the mass producers don't do. So you've actually got a decent foregrip there. You'll find that some of the manufacturers don't have quite a little foregrip. As soon as you got like a fight with a big fish, or it's an extended fight, you're grabbing the blank.
Yeah.
Just to get
Plus
a better leverage.
a decent sized.
Yeah, and a decent sized butt, so that can actually stick under your arm.
Yeah, so you're basically straight under there rather than going out, or you're having to fight it under your forearm, because there's not, it's all good when you're fighting a sort of a brim style rod, but once it gets into this, it's actually quite a bit of load. Like, we've caught 10, 12 kilo kings on these, and
Yeah.
I don't know how they haven't snapped, in all honesty.
Yeah, I remember a trip we did
Yeah,
and up at Coffs, and Mike hooked was a metre 20 something.
Metre 20 king, yeah.
Yeah, and we had multiple hookups at the time too. So Mike was just manhandling that king with it, not really concerned about breaking the rod.
More trying to find its limits, really.
Yeah,
too.
he was trying to break it.
Surprisingly, like, yeah, a bit of R&D, but yeah, no, they've been quite really. I'm being stoked with them, to be honest. Like, I think there's no, yeah, I haven't had to modify anything since coming out, or yeah, I'm stoked. There's a nice light in the hand, 2-piece brakes, and so you can put in your car. All Fuji components.
And you got one more, a premium version.
Yeah.
You can show the premium.
So we basically just wanted. I like. So they've got the Fuji silicon guides, and these ones have got they're basically the same blank. The only difference is you got the cork. We picked the highest graded cork, and we've gone the titanium torsites, which are really expensive. If you actually were if you're in rod building terms, like these guides are probably 10 times the price. Like in all honesty, or maybe 5 times the price, but yeah, they're a lot dearer. Like, so we've basically just built the rod the same, and we've just added the cost of parts on there to try and keep them into the point where people want to buy them and use them. So it brings the weight down of the rod. It's a little bit lighter. It's a bit what do you call it? Yeah, it probably
Feels faster.
It feels faster just because it's
weight
lighter.
of the tip.
So you haven't got the weight of the guides flexing the tip around. Yeah, no, they're both a great rod. So
yeah, and I guess at this point we Mike and Sondel from Trophy Hunter are going to donate 5 of their rods to for the snapper comp in a couple of weeks. And tonight also, if you want to buy one, we're going to 10% off the rods, and we'll do 20% off on soft plastics and all of these micro jigs and Kaburu styles. So if you want to buy anything afterwards, we've got a few specials on all the snapper stuff. But we might get Martin or Brett up from Ring Anglers. You can have a bit of chat about the comp that's coming up. He's loud enough. And Pete, Uncle Pete's up here.
I'm on third.
So yes, I'm on first. First of all, thank you to Alex and Dina and the crew at Fishing Station, and Mike and Jay for the excellent presentation tonight and the discussion. It's great to see everybody here, and it's a fantastic community, the fishing community in Sydney and also on the Northern Beaches. So really thank you for that. My name's Martin. I'm the club president for Ring Wranglers. We're celebrating our 50th year this year on the Northern Beaches. A lot of you probably know us. Those that don't know us, we're a family-friendly club. We're pretty competitive club as well. But what we're all about is about making sure that the club stays active, stays connected to the community, supports our sponsors as well, and is really there for not only for us, the members, but also bringing through our juniors as well. It's a really important part to make sure that we've got the juniors coming through. So I've got Brett Keeling next to me. Brett's our weigh master. He's going to talk about the competition as well. And of course, we've got Peter Ryan, Puddles. Most of us know Peter. And then Peter will have a chat there as well. So I'll hand over now to Brett. Thank you.
How you going, guys? Look, this year I've been tasked with getting the comp together, and we've been able to get over $50,000 worth of prizes and cash for the snapper comp. It's the 10th year running. It is for Bear Cottage. It's a charity for kids, poor kids. You know, they don't come out of that place, and you know, for us as a club, it's a really good thing for us to get on board and, you know, make it happen. Tonight, Mike is donating 5 rods, Trophy Hunter and Sondel. We can't thank him enough for that. It's quite a big value of money for rods to be donated. There will be lots of other rods and reels and lots of prizes. We've got Simrad, they've come on board. We've got Sounders, we've got GME, we've got Shimano, Daiwa. Daiwa's got like $15,000 worth of stuff that they've donated. Simrad's like up at $8,000 worth. It's amazing what we've got on offer for this competition. We've also done a limited run of t-shirts for the club. So again, they're a limited run. We want people to get on board, and again, it's all donated to the charity. So yeah, there's lots of sponsors: Blue Bottle, Marine, Alex. We've got Bar Crusher. I've got Pittwater Marine.
Up
Yeah.
there. Used to be in Carter.
You know, like we ended up with 49 sponsors. 49 sponsors is a lot of sponsors. So if you guys are interested, please fish it. It's all the posters are up around. Check out the dates. Get involved. Pete, obviously, I've only been fishing it for 3 years, but Pete, he can tell you about the history of it.
Well, the history of the snapper comp, it's now our 10th year. It's been running, and I noticed Griffo smiling in the back. That's his first year he's going to enter. It started off as a catch and measure competition, and the last couple of years, pre-COVID, because we haven't run it for 2 years, has now developed into a catch and release, and we find more and more competitors in catch and release, and that's a great thing. Fisheries are going to sponsor us with catch, with release weights, and these will be handed out in bags for everybody that enters. Not only and captain bags, and with numerous other bits and pieces. So it's well worth your while to go in. There's lucky door prizes that are, in previous years we've had a lucky door prize of a $1,800 sounder. So just for entering, you could win that. The competition gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Over the past couple of years, pre-COVID, we have donated $15,000 and $13,000 to Bear Cottage, which is associated with Sydney Children's Hospital. So all profits go to charity. Okay, we've been running for 10 years with Bear Cottage, and I think the sum total after the 10 years is probably up to about $60,000 or $70,000 that we've donated, which is a very, very good effort. It makes fishermen look good because guess what? Us guys get bad press, and we want to look good. And by looking good, that's what ring wranglers in developing this comp is all about.
We will be at the Time and Tide Hotel on the 20th of October. So that's the captain's night. It starts at 6 p.m. There will be barbecue, lucky door prizes, silent auctions. There's so much happening, guys. It's going to be unreal. So it's a 4-day event, 3 days fishing, with the fourth night being the first night. So please come along.
Thank you. So, just like we've got entry forms and all the information on the table at the back there. If you want to stick around, ask any questions to any of us, we'll be here. And really want to thank you all for turning up tonight. Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, mate.